In several Western countries, people are receiving visits from the police to question them about their political views, and some have even been arrested. Cases in the UK and New Zealand have involved people who made comments against mass migration and Islamism. In a May 4th viral video posted on Facebook, a New Zealand man is questioned by police for his alleged posts about the mosque shooting in Christchurch. Of course, the real issue isn't about religious intolerance. It's publicly accepted for people, including public leaders, to openly condemn religions such as Christianity. This is very specifically a political issue related to state policy and mass migration, which is often heavily from Muslim countries. Condemning state policies has become synonymous with a double standard on intolerance, which is punishable by the state. And by latching their policies to social issues, political parties have found a way to silence people who are criticizing their policies by using the powers of the state for harassment and intimidation. Even in the United States, similar practices are now in place, and they're being enforced by large corporations. Chase Bank is accused of canceling the accounts of some customers who have right-wing views. Twitter and Facebook are accused of censoring conservatives, and Google is accused of firing employees for questioning the company's culture of political correctness. British writer George Orwell warned about such systems with his description of the fictional thought police in his book 1984. He envisioned this secret police force as being tasked with finding thought criminals and punishing them for thought crime. These, quote, thought crimes, as Orwell imagined, referred to illegal thoughts, including unspoken beliefs or negative views towards the fictional ruling party under English socialism, INGSOC. The ideal good citizen of this system, Orwell said, quote, is expected to have no private emotions and no respites from enthusiasm. He is supposed to live in a continuous frenzy of hatred of foreign enemies, internal traitors, triumph over victories, and self-abasement before the power and wisdom of the party. Of course, even in the time when Orwell published the book in 1949, examples of regimes like this had been seen under Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party, Stalin's Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and Mao's Chinese Communist Party. All three regimes had their own forms of thought crime, and people risked imprisonment or death for opposing the ruling regimes. The deeper nature of the socialist idea is in the struggle, and much like Orwell's depiction of the populace living under the fictional INGSOC regime, people are expected to hold a, quote, continuous frenzy of hatred. The systems rely on the state identifying a privileged group, which is framed as taking advantage of the, quote, oppressed. And anyone who says otherwise is deemed guilty of ideological treason for aligning with the privileged. As Orwell imagined, people would go through a series of mental gymnastics to avoid committing thought crimes. This includes acts such as doublethink, in which party members simultaneously held two contradictory viewpoints. And in today's world, we've seen this in many cases. The leftist policy, for example, that any criticism of Islamism is, quote, religious intolerance, but that criticizing Christianity is somehow fine, is among the many examples. Yet under the deeper logic behind this modern doublethink, we need to understand the root cause of these wild concepts. Socialists hold that their ideas are utopian. They believe it's the ultimate progress toward their envisioned state, and anything that opposes that progress is guilty of all the things they seek to destroy. Under Mao Zedong, for example, people who opposed his 1967 theory of political correctness, which he used to guard his destruction of the Chinese culture during the Cultural Revolution, could be labeled as, quote, counter-revolutionary, and these people could be killed by the regime. In the United States, the idea that anyone who opposes socialist goals should be attacked by any means comes from the Marxist Frankfurt School theory of repressive tolerance. Now, this idea from Herbert Marcuse's A Critique of Pure Tolerance in 1965 held that only things that support the socialist cause should be tolerated, and anyone who opposes it should be met with intolerance. It introduced a warped concept of tolerance that tolerates only its own views. The result of these policies, as Orwell imagined, was a state in which people censor themselves, not just in public speech, but even in their own minds. He referred to this as crime stop, which he described as, quote, the faculty of stopping short as though by instinct at the threshold of any dangerous thought. Orwell described the self-censorship as a form of, quote, protective stupidity that supports the totalitarian regime even at the defiance of logic. Orwell called this concept black-white, which had two meanings. He said, quote, applied to an opponent, it meant the habit of impudently claiming that black is white in contradiction to the plain facts. Applied to a party member, it means a loyal willingness to say that black is white when party discipline demands this. We see the same thing today. Intolerance is bad unless it's the intolerance of those who oppose socialist policies. Then intolerance is encouraged. Attacks on religion are bad unless they're attacks on religions that the regime opposes. And racism is bad unless it's an attack on the, quote, oppressive races. What we're witnessing is the same theory of thought crime that Orwell envisioned, with a similar thought police enforcement branch and the same doublethink, crime stop, and black-white tools to justify it.